Big Ange Postecoglou left Scotland as a hero, but showed up in England as maybe a bit of a joke figure. He had a real mess to clean up at Tottenham with a succession of managers just not really hitting the mark. Failed transfer window after failed transfer window had compounded itself so severely, and last summer on his arrival they'd obviously sold star man Harry Kane, but Ange Postecoglou very quickly went from becoming a joke to a serious contender. Such was the case at Tottenham, were maybe in the midst of fighting for the title in some people's opinion come Christmas. And ultimately, when it was all said and done, finishing in 5th, everyone regards that as a massive success for season 1 for Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. So it was all attention on Tottenham for this summer, because Ange is kind of famed throughout any club he's been at before for being a much more effective manager, having a much more exciting, gung-ho attacking team in his second season compared to his first. And Tottenham had a lot of transfer business to get done in this window, particularly with outgoings, like I mentioned, with those compounding transfer windows on top of each other. Tottenham squad is bloated with some huge high earners, so this window has been all about the outgoings as much as the incomings. But in the video today, we want to have a look at Tottenham and think, are they actually stronger coming into this season as what they were last season? At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section and let me know. Tottenham finished 5th last year, really, can they hold out expectations of matching or surpassing that? Or, is even just qualifying for Europe full stop going to be a good year for them? And Ange has laid down the gauntlet already that season 2, he goes and wins a trophy. Tottenham fans are choking for some trophies, for some silverware success. Will this be the year it happens? And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, Tottenham are one of the teams I was really paying a keen bit of focus, a keen bit of attention to in this summer transfer window, because ultimately I really do want to see big Ange Postecoglou do well in the Premier League and lead Tottenham to some sort of success. He's an absolute hero for me at Celtic, and he's a very likeable manager, and the style of play that he does deploy when it is all firing and singing is a joy to watch, and can really take down any team it comes up against within reason. We're talking about Celtic in the Champions League. Also didn't work out too well for us. It's all about quality of player and resources at your disposal and all the rest of it, which is why I think that the Tottenham experiment or experience or whatever that Ange is going through should be the one that ultimately produces the most purest, high-level, high-octane version of Ange Ball that you could possibly imagine. And now that the transfer window is said and done, this is the squad as we see it here. Now, one thing I must say straight away, I've got to commend Tottenham or Ange for, is Tottenham have had some significant outgoings in this summer. A lot of free transfers, just cutting off dead wood, guys on huge wages, and a huge series of loan transfers as well, that some of them will have obligations to buy on them, but some of them puts players in the shop window, and maybe Tottenham can, do a wee bit of market trading with those guys in future windows. So the squad has been leaned down significantly. There's no more Højbjergs and Brian Heels and, all these other, Eric Dyers and Giovanni Lo Celso, Manor Solomon, who, maybe comes back next year or whatever. But, we've basically got 2 defenders to a position here all across the back 4. The goalkeeper position, is Vicarios without a doubt. But I do think that, Jed Spence is impressed in pre-season, and Ange actually went on record and saying, like, hey, he's just as much a part of the squad as anyone else. We've been really impressed with him. And I think having another capable right back here does cover Ange and Tottenham from some of the reliance that we've seen last year that they had, certainly with the left-hand side with Udogie, that they're not going to probably get into that position with Pedro Porro if he was to get an injury or serve some sort of suspension time or that kind of thing, And Udogie and Reguilon, to be honest with you, I like both of them very much. Now, they're both very, very different, and Reguilon hasn't really worked out greatly in English football, but I was a big fan of him in La Liga. And, the centre-backs, bit of experience in Davis, who's just the last remnant, I think, of this last era of Tottenham still. And then Dragusin, obviously the January signing that we've seen halfway through last season to complement Van de Ven and Romero. This is a really good defensive department, and one of the things that Tottenham did come under criticism for last year was their defending. But the big thing with Tottenham's defence period last year was it was wafer thin, and it was hamstrung by injuries at almost every turn, where we were seeing like Emerson Royale playing centre back. We see Ben Davies play everywhere on the pitch. Never mind when Eric Dyer was still in the club, and it's a miracle they didn't concede a few more goals, to be quite honest with you. So this time this year, there still will be injuries come and go, of course, because of the recovery runs that these guys are forced to make and all the rest of it. But I do feel Tottenham are much better balanced when it comes to the defence, and it's the quality of the backups as well. as because the first 11 here hasn't changed. It's the same defence as last season, but now with Dragusin being a bit more comfortable, with Jed Spence now being back from his loan period, and with Reguilon being retained, like there's a real good quality back eight there. But what really does make Ange Ball for me is the midfield. Midfield is one of the areas of the area of the pitch that I like spending extra attention, and I really just naturally focus on a little bit more. And it's clear to see that Bissouma is the nailed on, the most favoured defensive midfielder, or controller, metronome, playmaker, deep line, whatever you want to call them. And now when I've did these videos last season, I know a lot of Tottenham fans love Bentancur, but I have told you, like, if anyone in this midfield is getting replaced, it's not going to be Bissouma and it's not going to be Maddison. And it does feel like Bentancur's position now finally has some really healthy competition alongside it. Archie Gray can compete for this kind of box-to-box midfield role, as well as a defensive midfield role, as well as Sarr, who's shown again he can play in both of these positions. And the little guy Bergvall, who was signed in January and came through in the summer officially, I've not seen much of him. He's only played like 10 minutes or something already in the Premier League, but maybe he can share some minutes off of Maddison. But from what we've seen already early season, it's very clear that Ange very much likes Kulusevski. There was a lot of big teams interested in him, and he could have, easily been sold by Tottenham in this window. I don't think that was really something that wasn't an option available to them. And the reliance, or not the reliance, but the regularity that Kulusevski has played all the way through pre-season, as well as early doors in the Premier League in the first couple of matches, tells me that Ange is going to have him in the best 11 no matter what. And, like this midfield dynamic, it's all guys that have got high energy, can do more than one side of the game as well. And technically, like are forward-thinking, forward-passing players overall. The forward department hasn't changed too much. Obviously, Son is the main guy on the left. Werner's loan has been extended, which is great. Still got Brennan Johnson. Richarlison is still in the building. And then with Odobear coming in, he's like the Brennan Johnson signing of this season, of course. That kind of exciting winger who will be hungry to kind of break into the team and really try and become a first-team starter at a top-end Premier League club. But the headline signing, of course, throughout the whole squad and in attack is Dominic Solanke, who is kind of finally the Harry Kane replacement that they so badly needed last year. The main thing that held this team back was scoring more than 2 goals a game. They did score more than 2, like maybe 3 or 4 times off the top of my head. But when you look at the success that Villa had, never mind the top teams that are actually up there already, but so often to do well in the Premier League, you need to have 3, 4, 5 goals in your repertoire, in your arsenal. And it really did feel that either with Son through the middle and Werner out wide, or Kulusevski on the right, Brennan Johnson, it just didn't feel like they never had a proper front three combination that was like full strength or best quality, where they could, regularly, look to score 3, 4 goals in the matches that were required. And even like I'm talking about the regularity or the ability of scoring 3 or 4 goals. Of course, you won't need to score 3 or 4 goals every game, but if that's much more of a reality for clubs, and again, just to use Villa as an example, Villa could quite easily, or they did go on runs of scoring 3, 4, 5 goals over maybe 6 or 7 fixtures. But then when the games get tougher and you don't have that many chances, the guys are in such good form that 1-1 draw becomes 2-1, or that 0-0 draw becomes a 1-0 win because of the, not to say the accuracy, but how sharp the blade is, how fit and firing everyone actually is. So I think with Son and Solanke, it's definitely starting to crystallise what the front three is. It could be Kulusevski out on the right, and then you've got one of these midfielders maybe coming in. And maybe against teams that are a bit more threatening to Tottenham, you wouldn't see a midfield pairing of Kulusevski and Maddison, of course. But I just think Kulusevski is nailed in this team at this point. So is Maddison, so is Bissouma. And, we've spoke about Son and Solanke just now, but between Johnson, Odobear, like these guys, one of them, they're quite ever-present as well, So I wouldn't be surprised if once everything is kind of firing and everyone's fit and available and international breaks and cup runs and all that kind of thing does die down, we see this sort of team appear more often than you might imagine. Now, I do think it's unlikely to be the most common best 11 lineup we see. Like I say, guys like Sarr, Bentancur when fit, and Gray will definitely fight for this position. And then you might see Kulusevski out on the right. We've even seen Kulusevski maybe even cover in as a false forward here as well. But with Richarlison and Solanke still at the club, I don't think we'll see too much of that this year. But keeping Son out here on the left and having that Harry Kane figure kind of play alongside him again, like you can expect a better season out of him, I think. And Solanke should outscore whatever Richarlison did last year because it just wasn't much to write home about. There was a big void missing in that Harry Kane presence, that guy that will lead the charge, score the goals, run for the golden boot, that kind of thing. They kind of go backwards to go forwards. The defence, I think, has had a lovely upgrade on the depth and really does give them a bit more security, a bit more solidarity moving throughout the season. But able to still play the same defensive style and not really needing, hopefully failing the worst crises, to be playing a lot of square pegs and round holes across the defence. With the midfield, although you could probably say the actual footballing abilities went down, guys like Højbjerg and Heel and all the rest of it, like Lo Celso, these guys are like quality European players. They're probably just not really cut out for the Prem. They're not really cut out for Ange ball either, as it turns out. But this is a much more appropriate kind of midfield that we've got here, that just suits the style of play that will be needed. And guys that are all hungry enough and young enough, especially the take Bentancur to one side here. If they come on for 10 minutes, if they come on for 20, if they get a run in the team, they're going to leave their blood, sweat and tears out there on the pitch. And that's what's required in this midfield. You need to do all sides of the game. You need to go box to box, line to line, and really hustle the press for the front line when they're engaging it, and then recover to help out the defence when required. And it just feels that really any reasonable combination out of these 7 players that you could put together is much better than a lot of the midfields. Again, when Maddison was out for a period, Basuma had time out, Sarr had time out as well. Like the Tottenham midfield, it was this patchwork as a defence at times, and again, that kind of did hold them back. So as long as injury crisis isn't any worse than last season, the problems they had in defence and midfield, I think they could probably wrestle with this year. And then with Solanke coming in, you've got to think the Kane goals are maybe not replaced, but you start to feel less of a deficit against that. And then the upgrade on wings, retaining Werner, adding in Odobert. Yang, you guys told me when it happened, and I think it's probably the case that he'll be a B team player. But then Solanke and Richarlison, who I do think Ange likes Richarlison to a certain level. He's also an expensive guy, hard to move on as well. It's maybe a necessary kind of relationship on that one. But they're very similar in play style, so the route to goal can be a lot more consistent no matter which one is playing. Unlike before, when it was either Son or Richarlison through the middle. Werner had a few chances through the middle as well. Kulusevski, these guys are all very different in terms of how they play that arrowhead position. Whereas between these two guys, you get a bit more continuity in that regard. So overall, I actually think this squad is a lot stronger than what it was last season. Although the best 11 doesn't really have much material change to it. It is all about that second layer of depth and quality. And if Tottenham are going to go on and win a trophy this year, you're really looking at the League Cup, the FA Cup, or European football, because it's not going to be the Premier League that they're going to win. And the way European football kind of works for Tottenham this year is actually pretty favourable. Now, first of all, when it comes to the Europa League, one of the nightmare situations is that you draw a team in the far-flung reaches of European football, and in that Thursday to Sunday period, you've got to do a half the world trek to make the game happen. But Tottenham are at home to Qarabağ rather than away, and the furthest away trip that they've got is to Galatasaray in Turkey, which isn't really much by European standards. Now, on top of Galatasaray, they do need to play Roma and AZ Alkmaar, but playing Qarabağ at home, Ferencvaros, Elfsborg, Rangers, these are teams, especially Rangers, Ange is going to, probably mop the floor with. You could rotate a lot of this squad in for as well, give them meaningful minutes and try and develop them on as well. But Tottenham could very easily finish right at the top of that Europa League group standings, propel themselves not into the last 16, but into the quarterfinals, or from the last 32. You miss a round out if you finish really high, basically, is my point. And this level of squad in the Europa League really should be thinking about getting to the semis or getting to the final. When it comes to the domestic cups, you really are down to the luck of the draw when you meet a really formidable opponent in round 3. Is it round 5? Is it the semis? Can you get to the final before you meet someone meaningful? Look at Man United's FA Cup win last year, playing Coventry in the semi-final. So there's a wee bit more out with your control, a bit more random variance, I think, that comes into it. Whereas you can see everyone that's in the Europa League, and really on paper, Tottenham really shouldn't be too scared of many teams, if any. And with the fixtures they've got, they should be swooping through it. I think Tottenham have definitely got, with the right domestic draw in the League Cup or the FA Cup, they could definitely reach a semi or a final, and then, anything's up for grabs at that point. But particularly Europe, particularly the Europa League as well, because it does gain you Champions League qualification next year. I've got a feeling that may be the trophy that Ange drives towards. I've got a feeling that that's a trophy that is maybe Tottenham's best shot at winning one this year. And really, with the business they're done, I think they've got a squad capable of being able to play 2 matches a week for, large chunks of the season to a really high level, playing this kind of Ange ball style. The thing I do want to see over the next couple of games for them when they do go on a run of victories is how often they're scoring more than 2 goals, essentially. That's a key barometer for me on last season to this season. And when it comes to the Premier League, can I see Tottenham breaking back into the top 5 again? I'm going to say no, because I do think that they are going to lean into all of these cups, and that will blow up the fixture list, which I do think that is going to have a detrimental effect on the Premier League results, performance, and that kind of thing. So 5th is probably not on the cards, but I do think, by hook or by crook, they'll be back in European football next year, certainly. I'm really excited to catch the comment section on this one, guys, to see what you guys think is what does the season have in store for Tottenham this year. We're looking forward to seeing that on screen, and now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.